Can you study for AP Biology on your own?
No!
Sorry, Jordan. I think the answer is yes. Let's find out how. Hi guys, my name is Mikey from Avo Prep Academy, and today I thought we would do a slightly different video. Instead of focusing on any particular topic from the AP Bio curriculum, I thought I would make a video for those of you guys who might be studying for AP Bio on your own for the May exam, or perhaps you have a teacher who spends most of his time uploading YouTube videos instead of actually teaching. But the point that I want to make here is that there are so many resources now in this day and age that you can actually study for the AP exam on your own. But it really comes down to knowing the right tools and knowing the right technique and combining them together in the preparation for that May exam. So today I thought I'd make a quick video on what those tools are and what the right technique ought to be. And of course that might be different for each one of you, but hopefully the content that you find this in video might be helpful. But if you're just interested in how the AP units correlate with the chapters of Campbell Biology, you can also skip to that part of the video, so I will definitely put a timestamp below for that. But let's just begin by talking about the tools that you need. Like anything in life, in order to accomplish something, you need to have the right tools. And it's not just going to be one tool. So I'm going to talk about 3 major tools that I think are absolutely necessary in your strive to that 5. The first tool is the textbook. And when I mention the textbook, I am talking about Campbell Biology, because this is sort of the Bible when it comes to AP Biology. In fact, when College Board makes questions for the AP exam, they actually draw straight out of Campbell Biology in terms of their diagrams and examples to really ask about your knowledge and for you to demonstrate that knowledge. And the best way to do that is being familiar with the book. As I mentioned, I'm going to talk about how each of the chapters correlate with the units, but just keep in mind that if you have a copy of the book, that's great. If you don't, especially if you're studying alone, please go out to the bookstore and get one, or go to the library, or if you're really resourceful, I'm sure you'll be able to find an e-book or an online copy somewhere, though I'm not condoning piracy, okay? But they're out there somewhere, I'm sure. Now, the second tool that I want to talk about is the platform that you're on right now, which is YouTube. You see, YouTube has a tremendous amount of content, including this channel as well as so many other channels. Now, while our channel focuses primarily on the brief reviews of the concepts, there are other channels that actually comprehensively cover long-form lectures, and those are going to be incredibly helpful because you'll actually feel like you're sitting in a classroom as long as you pay attention. And because many of you guys have actually gone through the whole online schooling because of COVID, I'm pretty sure that you guys are better than I am at paying attention to the computer screen, because me, I just fall asleep. The last tool that I want to talk about are past papers, and this is a little bit tricky because when I talk about past papers, there are 2 elements to this. There's MCQ and then there's FRQ. But when it comes to FRQ, there are so many past papers on College Board's website that you can directly download, and you could even download sample answers, so that's really going to be helpful. But I know that it's really tough to find MCQ. See, when you actually take AP Biology in school, your teacher is given access to many practice tests as well as previous year's MCQ that are not generally available to the public. So while you might not have access to that, there are still other resources that could help. So for instance, there are Princeton Review, Barron's, Kaplan's, there are many other companies that make MCQ. And while I don't personally think that they make questions as good as College Board, they can still be useful resources. So definitely have a lot of papers on hand to start solving them when the time is ready. Now, the second part is about technique. So what is the technique to properly study for the AP Bio exam? Well, I personally think that the number one thing that you have to do is to have an action plan, which means that whether you're starting in September, like with the other students, or December or January, I don't really advise studying past that point because you're really going to be running short on time there. But whatever time you have left, you should have a really great plan to cover each of the units within an allotted time with the expected finish of about April. Early April if possible. That means to cover units 1 all the way to 8 by the end of March or beginning of April so that you can spend a whole month practicing those FRQ and MCQ that I was referring to earlier. So that means if you're starting in January and you want to finish by the early of April, you can simply divide up your time accordingly so you can figure out how many units you should be getting done as the weeks go by. But do keep in mind that some units are shorter than others, both in terms of the actual length and the amount of coverage on the exam. So do take that into account when you allocate your time. Now, the next thing that I want to talk about is how you actually make use of either YouTube videos or the textbook. You have to take notes, because one of the things that I've learned from almost 20 years of teaching biology is that students who take meticulous notes and are creating a lot of good drawings and models, and by the way, you don't have to be a good drawer, you just have to make sure that you're able to draw these models that you're learning about so that you can comprehensively understand what's happening and to hierarchically organize that information into a set of data that you're going to be able to retrieve later on at the actual exam. So as you read through the textbook or as you watch YouTube videos, make sure that you keep really good notes so that you can both review the notes and use the note-taking as a process of learning. So it is at this point that I want to talk about the things that you guys are all waiting for, which is how do the units on AP Biology correspond to the chapters of Campbell Biology. So I'm actually going to have my computer screen shown up here for the time being. And what you guys are seeing right now is essentially the contents of the textbook from units 1 through 8. Of course, the units on Campbell Biology are different than the units on the College Board CED. However, let's just briefly take a look at what Unit 1 is on the College Board's description. So for the AP Biology exam, Unit 1 is Chemistry of Life. And for this unit, I would advise you to read chapters 3, which is on water, 4, which is on carbon, and 5, which is going to be on the structure of macromolecules. And those are the 3 main chapters that's going to cover the grounds there. In Unit 2, where we talk about cell structure and function, here we're actually looking at a slightly shorter chapter distribution. We're looking at Chapter 6, a tour of the cell, and Chapter 7, membrane structure and functions. So as you can see at the beginning, it really does go step by step. As we get into Unit 3 in cell energetics, we have enzyme structure, catalysis, and all of that. Well, that's going to be chapters 8, 9, and 10. Chapter 9 being cell respiration and 10 being photosynthesis. On the College Board CED, they actually do photosynthesis first and then cell respiration. That's okay too. I actually prefer to teach it that way in my classroom, but it doesn't really matter. Just keep in mind that some of the details they talk about in cell respiration will probably be glossed over in chapter 10 when they talk about photosynthesis, so maybe following the chapter order is not a bad idea. Unit 4, Cell Communication and Cell Cycle, seemingly disconnected ideas, but that is actually chapters 11 and 12 on Campbell Biology. Chapter 11 is literally called Cell Communication, and chapter 12 is called Cell Cycle. So definitely those chapters are going to correspond to one another. When it comes to Unit 5, as we go into heredity, we're looking at chapters 13, chapters 14, and chapters 15. Okay, so chapter 13, 14, and 15, which covers meiosis, Mendelian genetics, and the molecular inheritance, or how our chromosomal structures relate to what Mendel had presciently hypothesized. Well, that is going to cover Unit 5. Unit 6, when we get to gene expression and regulation, that's going to be chapters 17, 18. But be careful here. Chapter 18 can get really deep in Campbell Biology. After all, it's a college textbook. So I would highly advise you to read just chapters 18.1 and 18.2, paying close attention to operons in prokaryotic cells, and that should be enough for the AP Biology exam. So here's where things get interesting, because as we move to Unit 7 and Unit 8 on the CED, that's natural selection and ecology. And for this, we actually have to skip chapters 19, 20, and 21, because that's on viruses, biotech, and genome and their evolution. We actually go all the way to chapter 22, 23, and 24. So chapters 22, 23, and 24 are largely based on what I call natural selection, and then microevolution and macroevolution. And yes, there's a bit of information from chapters 25 and even chapter 20 that might be helpful, but for the bulk of what we need to do, I think chapters 22, 3, and 4 are going to be enough for Unit 7. And when it comes to ecology in Unit 8, we jump all the way over here to chapters 52, 53, 54. And those 3 chapters are going to be the meat of what ecology section is going to be about in AP Biology. Now, one thing that I didn't mention here is biotechnology. So techniques like gel electrophoresis, transformation, transduction, a lot of details of what we learn about in the lab setting. For those sections, you could definitely watch YouTube videos to gain a sense of how those techniques work, because even though chapter 20 is about biotechnology, it can get a little bit too dense and deep. So maybe just staying focused on those specific labs and protocols that you may have to perform in the normal classroom setting, that's probably best left to the YouTube creators. Maybe I'll make some videos too in the future. Anyway, so that's what I might do with the chapters from the book. And of course, if you're watching lectures on YouTube, then they're going to probably correspond pretty well to the College Board CED, so you're going to be okay there. So as long as you have a good action plan and you have a good set of tools from which you can study, then I would advise that by the end of March, at the beginning of April, that you start solving a lot of problems. I would solve at least 1 or 2 full sets of the AP Biology exam between April and May so that you can familiarize yourself with the styles of questions that come out, as well as how to write the FRQ. And if you have trouble writing FRQ, just watch our video on how to solve Unit 1 FRQ, because even though that particular video is primarily focused on Unit 1, the same technique will hold true across all of the units in AP Biology. So I hope this video has been helpful, and if it has been, click the subscribe button to stay on top of all the new content that we're planning ahead in the future, and click the like button because that just makes me feel good. And hopefully we'll see you in the next video. My name is Mikey. We'll see you soon.